Good morning, my creative friends. Dr. Minette Riordan here. After a lovely long Memorial Day weekend, I hope others were able to take some time to relax and enjoy wherever you are in the world. We had a 3-day weekend here in the United States, and my allergies are horrific this morning, so I apologize. If I sound snuffly, I feel fine and am a little bit snuffly this morning. So I've decided to have a little bit more of a theme for the next couple of weeks until I get tired of the theme, and then I will move on to something else. But we're going to look at birds for the next few weeks because there are so many birds that migrate through here, and we get super excited about bird watching when they are coming through. And this little beauty here is a yellow breasted chat, a yellow breasted chat. Me too, Barbara. I'm married into a family of bird watchers, and my husband has been having a lot of fun bird watching lately. So super excited to play with some birds. But good morning, Leslie. I wanted to also continue with my theme of affirmations as well because I have started this beautiful journal. I want to keep working in this journal. So we're going to do some wordy birds over the next few weeks and have some fun, different types of bird art as well as continuing with some affirmations for something just a little bit fun and different. And this guy, interestingly, when I was doing some research about him, he only sings in the spring when he's good morning, Kay, when he's looking for a mate. And the rest of the time, he's actually pretty quiet. Good day, Blanca. The rest of the time, he's pretty quiet. So it's a treat to get him sing. And we went for a hike last week at one of our favorite spots, and he was sitting on a shrub that looked very much like this one. This was from a bird identification site. And he was just singing his little heart out with the sun shining on his beautiful golden yellow chest. He was so loud. And yellow breasted birds, the symbolism of that is joy, hope, optimism, and he was certainly hoping to get lucky, singing his little heart out. I also have a sort of fantasy bird that I created just sitting around playing. This was a piece of watercolor that I had already colored and thought, what can I draw on top of that? So I did a quirky little bird. So we might have some bird paintings, some bird drawings, some real birds, and some fantastical birds over the next few weeks. And I'm going to continue working in this affirmations journal that I started and have been filling up. I've been working on it between some of our sessions too. Really loved that page with just some really simple watercolor play. But I've got this nice piece of canvas paper here. And so I thought we would get our yellow breasted chat happening here on this little page. And I also found some old graphite paper that I had tucked away. So I'm going to use graphite paper to get my bird down on the page. This is one of my favorite cheats or shortcuts is to use a photograph, and I can either make my own graphite paper just by coloring over the back of the image with pencil, or you can use graphite paper that you can purchase at any craft store. And he's such a beautiful, beautiful bird. Good morning, Marion. Good morning, Yvonne. Glad to have you back, my friend. And thanks for everyone that joined me on Friday evening as well for our studio session. It was super fun to gather live with people. And when I saw this guy, I wonder if I have a picture. So he was actually backed up against some beautiful, beautiful red rocks. We got out a lot this last weekend, and he's so tiny. And of course, I just have my iPhone here, so I didn't have any kind of great camera. And I got lots of wildflower photos, but this is the landscape that he lives in with all that scrubby brush. And I might even have gotten him singing. don't know if you guys can hear that. Probably not. So I'm going to give up on that. But if I would go listen to him sing. So this is called Devil's Backbone. It's a place that we love to hike up to, and the rocks are amazing. And it's the perfect habitat for the yellow-breasted chat. And in this picture, there was a conflagration of big ravens happening up there. I did see that, Yvonne. I haven't had time to respond yet, but thank you so much for sending it. Oh, good. You could hear it. Yeah, beautiful. I'm so glad. He has the most beautiful, beautiful song, and you could hear Brad and I giggling because he was literally just absolutely singing his heart out. All right. So I've got my little piece of graphite paper. I need some sort of ballpoint pen or sharp pencil. Let's see, I think I could use this pencil probably without the lead. And I think I'm even going to cut this down a little bit just so I'm not getting that nice black graphite all over everything, including myself, because we just need that one little piece. And the graphite's definitely neater than doing the colored pencil on the back. But I'm messy. I always seem to get graphite everywhere all over me. So let's just get him down on the page. And again, I'm just trying to get his shape. Every bird has just that slightly different shape of their bodies, the slightly different way they hold themselves, slightly different way that they perch. On this same walk, we saw lots of ravens and a few different kinds of swallows and swifts. And then one of my favorite spring birds that we get to see here is we get a few different kinds of buntings, which are beautiful little birds. So there was a lazuli bunting. We're going to paint him tomorrow. So if you're going to paint birds along with me, I would just do a quick Google search for a yellow-breasted chat and pick an image that you like. I liked this one because of all of the grasses and shrubbery, right, that reminded me very much of the scrub brush that, and he sits way right up on top of that scrub brush. I'm just going to go ahead and just very loosely get some of these leafy bits in here too. That'll help me with the composition of the piece. And I'm just kind of quickly going around. So this is a yellow-breasted chat, and he is gorgeous. And let's see. Get his cheek in there. Get some of those details in there. He's got a pretty big eye for this little guy there. And he's all puffed up in this picture. And he's beautiful when he's singing, and his whole throat just sticks out. And he gets so puffed up. And again, when that yellow light is shining on him, he just is absolutely amazing. And I love this picture that has this blurred out sort of greenish background with him so bright in the foreground. So I'm going to work on sort of imitating this look of the painting and see where we get, right? Like there's a lot of different greens. I mean, there's some gray. I might even put a little red in mine of some of the red rocks in the picture where I saw him. And I realized I forgot to put any gesso on this page ahead of time. And don't even have any gesso sitting here, but maybe we'll just get some white paint down around him. And I could just leave him white on that canvas, which is kind of pretty also, and just let him really pop out, which also feels kind of fun. So maybe I'm going to paint him first. oops, got white paint everywhere, and then decide where I want to go with the rest of the painting. So when we start to look at bird colors, don't get too caught up in making the colors perfect, because when you look at this guy, if I didn't get white paint all over him, when you look at him up close, and it doesn't want to focus up close. See if it'll focus for us. There we go. So you can see there's some gold in there and a little pinky highlights. And at first glance, he's kind of a browny gray, but we can really have some fun playing with the color of these gorgeous birds, right? So especially, and if you read the descriptions of him, they say he's kind of olive on top. So maybe this is kind of a little bit of an olivey green in there. So I'm going to have some fun this morning with mixing colors and see what kind of trouble I can get into, and if I can kind of imitate a bit some of these gorgeous colors. And I'm going to move that away and maybe just keep my bird there on the side where I can see him. And then we got to refocus down here. There we go. They're so tiny, and the I'm like, okay, I don't need these giant amounts of paint, but then I will just use those on another page. So I am going to start with his head and wing and tail here and see where I can get to. I got caught up reading this amazing book this morning, and I realized I didn't even bring any water down here with me, so I might need to go find some, see if I've got some water over on my other table. I'm looking for some smaller brushes. So this is when it's so important to have a variety of sizes of brushes when you're working with these really small images. And I love great big brushes, and I use a lot of big brushes, but this one's pretty, frayed at the top. It's not smooth and flat anymore. So I'm definitely going to want some smaller brushes for this guy. And I'm wondering if I have a palette knife over here. So I got caught up reading this beautiful new book this morning called Your Brain on Art that just came out. I don't even remember now where I saw it, but it sort of proves all the things that I know to be true about making art, and it's the actual neuroscience and a field of study that I had not heard of called neuroaesthetics, talking about the positive impact of art making on your entire body system, on your emotional and physical systems, and the benefits of not just making art, but even of just beholding art. And I just was reading this morning the section on sound healing and healing vibration. So what's really interesting is because I got excited and I started down the path of doing this, and I did not gesso this ahead of time. So I'm noticing that that paint is going on there very patchy because I just dove in because I was a little late getting down here. Usually I get down here and get all set up and prepared, but I didn't want to stop reading this book. And of course I had to stop right at the chapter on color and the benefits of working with color, but that will be tomorrow morning's reading. But this whole field of neuroaesthetics is all about studying the impact of the arts on our brain, the positive impact of the arts on our brain. And it was so amazing to just like see someone with that kind of scientific perspective of, what in my heart I already know to be true, right? That art's good for you. Making art is good for you. Looking at art, listening to music, going to plays has a powerful positive effect on us. And I'm regretting not having gessoed this first, but I'm just going to go for it. and kind of see where I get to. It's just a different look than I might normally create. And it means I might have to just take some time to kind of just build up these layers a little bit more to get some of the texture in there. And I'm using I think that was a raw sienna, white and black, burnt sienna. So I'm just using burnt sienna, black and white to mix those colors. And those same colors are going to be great for our stems too, which are sort of a gray brown over here. And I'm just going to lightly start to get these in there. These would actually be really fun to come in and do with my poscas. And I have a bigger page here, right, than my drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and just maybe flesh that out a little bit so he gets that place where he looks like he's sitting way at that top of that shrub. And then noticing that his underbelly here is pretty white, but I'm going to get a little bit of grayish white in there. And I'm also feeling like I want him to be a little sharper and clearer, so I may come back in with a Sharpie to sharpen up some of the lines, and definitely to do like the eye ring and some of the other little parts. But he's coming together pretty quickly there. He's pretty cute. And it was funny, so I looked up symbolism for the yellow-breasted chat, and I got symbolism for yellow-breasted birds. And they definitely symbolize hope, joy, and optimism. And I was looking at some positive affirmations because I want to continue to have these birds maybe connect to some affirmations. And what I came up with is I am beautiful, because he was singing his little heart, his little cheery heart out so loudly. And he is just this gorgeous, gorgeous yellow. And he followed us as we were walking down this beautiful trail, following along these rocks. He was a very curious little guy, and he wondered what we were up to. So from the top of shrub to top to shrub, he just sort of followed us along the tops of these shrubs. And I want to make sure I get some of that yellow in his wings. We're going to let that dry a little bit, and maybe I want to see some of the little stripy bits on his wings, but that paint is still too wet and it's just sort of bleeding in. But again, that just making sure that we have those tiny brushes. And you can just barely see his little legs and feet in the picture here, but they are a very dark gray, and he has very long toes curled around these little branches. And George is over here going, "Why are you talking about birds?" And his little leg is here. And his little legs are kind of just hidden in these little branches. And I'm going to bring just a little bit of that black to some of the edges of my branches. We'll start to give them a little dimension. And I'm still playing with this canvas paper, trying to, decide, do I like the texture? I definitely like it better when it's been pre-gessoed. And this is actually the back side, I think, not sure. Front side, but just noticing, right? Just sort of paying attention to some of the All right, anybody else painting birds this morning? I'm gonna go see if I've got some water over on my other table. Let this guy dry here for just a minute. And I'd love to hear what are other people painting this morning. And I'm thinking it's going to be super fun sketching the bird. Awesome. It's going to be super fun to have a book with images of all these sweet little birds that we only get to see once a year. One of the other ones that we get to see that I love is the Bullock's Oriole, which look like these just giant yellow bombs flying through the air. They are absolutely gorgeous. All right. And I'm going to get some scrubby green going here. I'm kind of liking him on the neutral background. What do you think? I don't know that I need to paint that whole background. So maybe he's going to be just a cute little sweet bird against a white background. So that feels interesting and a different way to do it. So getting a couple of different shades of green here. Feeling a bit awkward and out of practice. Well, the only solution for that, my friend, is more practice. I'm going to take a sip of my tea here. We have lots of chickadees here. All right, so I'm just going to come in and start to do some just abstract leafy bits down here. I'm not going to worry too much. I've got a couple of different shades of green here. I want him to be what stands out, so I want him to have more detail and let the rest of this kind of fade into the background a little bit. And definitely want that feeling, that he's sort of sitting way up on top there. And that yellow is definitely not quite bright enough, so I'm going to put some white over him. And so interesting, the texture that's being created by the raw canvas is just a different way to paint. It's not bad, but it's just I'm noticing that, okay, this is interesting. And I'm going to come back in, work on his beak. He's got kind of a chunky beak. And with now I got paint smeared all over this, but you can see where this looks like it's been hand painted. So the shadow is on the very bottom side of his beak. There's actually a lot of light on the top side of beak. It's out of my comfort zone too, which is why I always start with the tracing the shape, because then it creates this muscle memory where I'm, working on the details of it and starting to learn to see differently and look at all the little different shapes and not getting hung up and getting his proportions right. And also the texture of this raw canvas is tripping me up just a little bit, so I'm just present to that, how that's tripping me up, and it's not a bad thing. I'm just figuring out how can I best go with that. And what's missing here is his branch that he's actually holding on to. He needs this one more little branch coming in there. And I want to see his outline just a little bit more, so I'm going to just make him a little bit more cartoony because I like seeing all the parts, right? I like seeing all the parts. and because I'm working on this funky surface. Everything is just an experiment. Everything is just a learning and a practice, and how can I do this better? And he has this gorgeous white eye ring that really stands out. And the paint takes so much longer to dry on the canvas here too, so just noticing that this needs a little more time to dry. So of course my posca is not super happy about getting all that paint on it, so we'll let him dry a little bit more and then we'll work on the details. So I want to work a little bit on the color of his yellow breast here. And these are the fussy parts, right? Where we just get to just really take our time until we get it right. And I'm not trying to get it perfect. I'm just trying to get it to where can I live with it and feel like I did an okay job of capturing the chat. And what I'm noticing is that his eye is a little bit too big, and I've lost a little bit of some of the roundness of his top of his head. And guess what? My favorite mantra, everything is paint overable. So I'm just going to come back in again with our gray mix here. And it's going to get mixed in with that black. But he actually has a little bit of a pointy head. Okay, we'll let that get nice and dry. Of course, I was painting in my studio this weekend, and my dryer's on the other side over there as well. But he's getting there. He's kind of cute. See if we can make him. So he's pretty white, right? He's got definitely some drama on him. And then let's see about these branches, which are almost white in the bright sunlight. And I'm going to layer that paint on pretty thick to start to build the layers up over the top of this funny raw canvas. And it's almost kind of pinky, but we'll just keep playing with it till we get it right. So variety of sizes of brushes are definitely key to painting these little birds. Although I love painting them big too, so we'll probably do some big ones and some small ones. He's not perfect, but he's pretty stinking cute. And his leg actually comes like from way back over here, so we gotta give him his leg back. See if we can there. And the other one you can't even really see because it's so tight in there. Okay, so let's give him a smaller eye. So by the time we add that eye ring, looks a little more like it's supposed to. And I like seeing that little bit of stripiness on his wings, but he's looking a little dark, and so he definitely needs some white highlights on him. I usually use poscas because they're so much easier, and I feel like I have so much control. But over the top of this wet paint, and he has a little bit of white under his neck right too. We can just put a few little white highlights in here to just brighten him up a little. You may not even on the screen be able to see that detail. But there we have an approximation of a cute little yellow breasted chat on a really simple page. Like, it doesn't need to be super fancy. I kind of like him on the neutral background, which is a very different look for me. As you know, I love doing lots of detailed layered backgrounds, but he just kind of wanted to be the featured spotlight here. And I'm just using my tiny little brush here to create the illusion of feathers. I'm just going to go back and forth with my colors. So remember, he's very gray, a little red, maybe even a little olive. And the more we can just use those colors to build him up, the more vibrant he'll be, the more he'll jump off the page for us without changing his colors too much. And this is his other leg is down here. This is so much more realistic than I normally do. It's challenging for me too, but he's coming along here. I'm going to gray that top of his beak. And it's interesting from, having traced the design to starting to paint on the design, what my eye thinks I see and what the actual shape of the bird is. And so part of learning to get better at drawing is just learning to see. And our eye tricks us a lot of the time. And so I want a little bit of that speak color in him up there. So I think it's important also to, when you trace the images and you hand draw the images, you can also then start to see, right, some of the ways that your eye tricks you and completes lines. It's the other thing I love about tracing over the top of an image is that you start to look at shape. If you ever look up, how to draw a bird or how to draw an animal, they do everything with shapes, right? So, they would say, well, look, we've got an oval shape here. And, we've got this kind of oval shape here. And then his head is another oval. And then we have this long oval tail. So we want to start to learn to see the different shapes. And so tracing allows us to really capture the shape of the bird without getting caught up in the details, right? We can also use simple measurements like how long is his face relative to his body. In my mind's eye, this space to this space is longer than this to this, but when I measure it, it's actually not. It's actually the same, but because of the angles, they look different, right? And so it's just practice learning to see. And so working from photographs is a great way to get that started. Okay, I'm wanting to, I think, build up these greens just a little bit more. In the photograph, they're very bright greens, but in this white paper, it almost feels like they need a little more richness added to them, maybe a little more variety. I want to sort of de-emphasize. That looks better. And it's so funny, you can imagine how in seeing him, they would be able to hide. And of course, in mating season, breeding season, they're more yellow than ever. But the rest of the year, they're a little bit more dull. And he's pretty much, a lot of the same colors. as the shrubbery around him. So they eat bugs and worms and insects. So they spend a lot of time on the ground rooting for those things. So they're an interesting bird behaviorally as well. And so, again, it's just such a treat to see them this time of year because you don't see them other times of the year. And I just got a little bit of stabilo on here. Still haven't got that breast, like the vibrancy of the yellow. I almost need a neon yellow that I'm sort of going for here. So I might let that dry a little bit, or maybe we'll just try a different shade of yellow. That first one was Azo Yellow Deep, which is one of my favorites. And this is just a primary yellow. Thank you, Barbara. At the top, if you ever, when you're out on a walk or something, look at the way shrubs grow. And they, at the top, they are like that, right? We look at them again and we see them as individual bits and pieces, but they're not, right? So they actually, these very scrubby ones are not super thick at the ends. All right, that's a little bit more yellow there. But this azo yellow is really his color. And it's funny how it just sort of, blends with his belly and you get kind of lost in the belly. Okay, that's a little bit better. All right, he's pretty stinking cute, so I'm going to call him done. I'm going to let him get really dry, and I think he needs some words here. And I love the affirmation of too many things in my hand here. And probably take a few layers to get that all nice and inked up on this funny canvas. That I am beautiful. And let's give him just a silly cartoon ball. Because he is beautiful. And when we saw him again, he's just singing his little heart out. And we'll give him just a little bit of playfulness there. So pages can come together super, super fast and simple. That's a great question about an iridescent medium that you can add to acrylics. I don't know the answer to that, Marion. I have not heard of that in acrylic or watercolor. But now I'm super curious to go and research that and find out. So that would be super fun. So there's our cute little yellow-breasted chat, super simple bird. I think tomorrow we're going to do the lazuli bunting, who is a beautiful bird. And I've got all this extra paint on my palette here that I want to use up. So my favorite thing to do when it comes to using up extra paint is just to get it down on a page that will be then become a layer for another page. I may never see this paint again, but again, it just starts to build up those layers. It's almost like continuing the palette from that page to that page, but that's not going to last because I also just have this a lot of white on my palette and some of those other little bits of color, but I try not to ever waste paint. So I always either have another journal nearby or just some scratch paper that I can use that paint on. But my favorite thing to do with leftover acrylic paint is always to add it to a journal spread. So this might become already a nice green background for a different bird. It's funny because a lot of the pictures that I found for what I wanted to use have the birds against these black backgrounds. And I'm just seeing if there's, just a little bit of some of these other colors left on there. I'm not going to stick that black on here. We'll go stick that black on somewhere else. But just using up all the little bits of paint. And I'm working sidewards in my journal, and people have asked me before about, does that bug me to have them going the other way? No, it doesn't. I actually love having, pages going different directions. And up close, you can kind of see that gorgeous yellow of his breast. And thank you, Kay. It's really fun to go. If you go just Google yellow-breasted chat online, you will definitely find some uh, audio or and video of him singing, and he is amazing. Folk art has a thickener that creates a transparent effect. Yeah, so you can use glazing medium also to create transparency, but I'm not so sure about the iridescent effect. I'm going to maybe just add a little tiny smidge of black to create a little shadow in there. These I think need a little bit of maybe white highlight on them as well, but I don't want to do that until I have gotten it completely dry. So I'm going to call this one complete for today. There is our yellow-breasted chat with his affirmation, I am beautiful. And I will be back tomorrow with a gorgeous lazuli bunting. And let me show you a picture in case anybody wants to go find your own picture of him and look at that beauty. So that's who we're going to paint tomorrow. He'll be a fun painting challenge to take on, and look again, that just very simple stark background. So it's a great photo, great composition there. So this is a lazuli bunting, and that's what we're going to be playing with tomorrow if anyone wants to find a photo for inspiration ahead of time. As always, my friends, thank you so much for joining me. This is Painting in Your PJs live with Minette, and we're going to be painting some wordy birds over the next few weeks. I'll see you back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.